In a world filled with noise, where everyone is trying to prove something, a true queen doesn't speak just to be heard. She speaks when her words matter. There's something truly special about silence, especially when it comes from a woman who understands her value. A queen doesn't waste time arguing with noise. She grows past it. There was a time when she used to explain herself, tried to justify her heart, and help others see her side. But now she understands, not every situation deserves her words. Her silence isn't weakness. It's strength covered in grace. Let me tell you a story. There was once a woman who was judged for being calm. People thought she was proud, distant, maybe even cold. But what they didn't see was that she had already moved past the need to prove herself. She had been misunderstood before. Her intentions had been twisted. She had cried alone, quietly praying, "Why can't they see my heart?" But then one day she stopped. She stopped explaining because God reminded her, you don't have to give your peace to confusion. You don't have to offer your story to people who've already made up their minds. A queen doesn't need to explain her quietness. Silence becomes her crown. Just like a peaceful river that flows quietly, bringing life without shouting, real strength doesn't need to be loud. It's calm and steady. Silence is an answer, not a weakness. These are more than just nice words. They reflect real truth for anyone who has ever felt pushed to explain themselves in a world that constantly judges, questions, and labels. In a world where shouting is often mistaken for being correct, choosing quiet can look like giving up. But actually, it's one of the strongest things a person can do, especially when that person has grown beyond needing approval. Think about it. When someone speaks badly about you, your first instinct might be to argue back, defend your actions, explain your point, or prove they're wrong. But have you noticed that the more you try to explain, the more twisted your truth becomes in their ears? The louder you speak, the less they listen. Not because you're wrong, but because they've already made their judgment. That's when silence becomes your greatest strength. Picture a woman walking away from a conversation where she's being unfairly blamed. She knows she could say something. She has the truth, the memories, the emotions ready to make her case. But instead, she just smiles and stays quiet. Why? Because winning isn't her goal. Keeping her peace is. Her silence says, I know my truth, and I don't need to prove it anymore. This silence isn't out of fear. It's full of confidence. It's the quiet strength of someone who's been through a lot, someone who knows that words don't always fix things. Sometimes they make it worse. It's the silence of someone who's cried through the nights, who once doubted herself, and who finally realized no one can take her worth unless she gives it away. Think about a lotus flower growing in a muddy pond. It doesn't argue with the dirt. It doesn't try to explain how it grew in the darkness. It simply blooms. In the same way, a queen doesn't argue about her silence. She lets her actions, her peace, her steady presence, and her results speak for her. People often see silence as doing nothing. But those who've truly experienced it know it's far from passive. It's full of purpose. It's wise. It takes great self-control to stay quiet when your name is being dragged. It takes emotional strength to know that not every comment needs a reply. Not every lie needs correcting. Not every insult deserves your attention. Everyday life is full of moments where we feel misunderstood. At work, when someone takes credit for our hard work. In relationships, when someone thinks our silence means guilt. In families, when setting boundaries is seen as disrespect. In friendships, when time apart is seen as not caring. In all these situations, it's easy to argue. But the higher road is to pause, breathe, and stay grounded. A woman who chooses silence isn't walking away from the issue. She's rising above it. She's saving her energy for things that matter. She's choosing conversations that lift her up, not pull her down. She understands that some people don't want to understand. They listen just to argue. They hear just to reply. So why waste words? Look at nature. The sun doesn't explain why it shines. It just does. The moon doesn't say sorry for its phases. It just goes through them. Trees don't shout as they grow. They just stretch upwards, silently and steadily. The most powerful things, growth, healing, change, often happen quietly. Silence isn't about absence. It's presence in its most powerful form. It's like saying, I see what's happening. I feel it all. But I won't bring myself down to the level of drama. It's wisdom whispering, let time show the truth. It's having the calm to stay composed during storms and the grace to walk away without causing pain. When you wear silence like a crown, people might not get you. Let them misunderstand. Your purpose isn't to be understood by everyone. It's to understand yourself so well that outside noise doesn't shake your inner calm. The people who really love you, who are truly for you, they won't need your explanation. Your peace will be enough for them to trust your heart. So, when someone challenges your silence, don't let it disturb you. Smile gently. Move with grace. And remember, the deepest waters are the quietest. A queen doesn't need to raise her voice. She lives her truth, and that speaks louder than anything she could say. You don't need to defend your peace. That one line carries more power than it seems. We live in a world that celebrates business, loves loudness, and often sees rest as laziness and silence as being weak. In such a world, choosing peace can feel like going against the flow. People will question why you're calm. They'll misunderstand your peace. They'll try to drag you back into the confusion you've left behind. But real peace doesn't need defending. It's something personal. A sacred space that only you can protect. There are times when you simply grow out of certain conversations, arguments, even people. You stop replying, not because you don't care, but because you've learned that your inner peace is more important than being understood. You've fought too many emotional battles to let someone disturb the quiet space within you. Picture someone who once reacted to everything, every rude remark, every misunderstanding, every false story. But through tears, soul searching, and healing, she realized that all those reactions were costing her peace. It wasn't about being right anymore. It became about protecting her emotional space. One day, she chose peace. Not because life became perfect, but because she became better at facing it. She noticed how heavy she felt after defending herself to people who never wanted to hear her truth. She started to feel how drained she was after explaining her choices to people who wouldn't respect them anyway. That's when she understood trying to explain your peace is like describing a sunrise to someone who refuses to open their eyes. Peace isn't noisy. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't need a stage. It just is. It lives in the quiet of the early morning, in deep breaths, in walking away from negativity, in choosing not to answer the message that pushes your buttons, in saying no to chaos, in letting go without making a big deal. And the more you pick peace, the more you'll confuse people who live off drama. Maturity means choosing where your energy goes. That one truth carries a lot of wisdom we often miss. When we're younger or less aware, we respond to everything. Every word, every glance, every opinion. We feel we must defend ourselves, prove our worth. We think being right is everything. We believe arguing shows strength. But as we grow, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, we begin to see things differently. Not everything deserves our energy. And that energy is the most valuable thing we have. How we use it shapes our life. Imagine waking up each day with a set amount of energy, like money in your account. You choose how to spend it. On joy, purpose, kindness. Or on frustration, arguments, stress. And the more you waste on things that don't matter, the less you have for what really does. Maturity means knowing that some things are just not worth it anymore. There's a quiet strength in walking away, not from weakness, but from understanding. It's the strength of someone who knows peace is more valuable than being understood. Someone who sees that being, right, doesn't always justify the emotional cost of explaining to those unwilling to listen. We all face battles, but maturity teaches us to ask, is this fight necessary? Will this talk help me grow or just wear me out? Picture a woman at her workplace who's constantly being doubted or talked down to by a coworker. In the past, she might have reacted harshly, maybe even snapped back. But now, she handles it differently. She still speaks up when it matters, but she does it with calmness. She chooses her timing wisely. She understands that reacting emotionally to every little jab only adds fuel to the situation. So instead, she remains calm, keeps her dignity, and walks away from the nonsense. That is what maturity looks like. It's choosing how to use your energy wisely. Or think about a friend who always seems to create tension or drama. Eventually, you realize that explaining yourself repeatedly makes no difference. They're not interested in truly hearing you. They just want to be right, to be in control, or to stir things up. Maturity is knowing that sometimes silence is the best answer. It's not about being proud. It's about choosing peace. You come to understand that not every relationship should have front row access to your life. It's also about setting emotional boundaries. We often feel like we must fix how others feel, ease their storms, or explain why we're quiet. But real maturity whispers, I am in charge of my own energy, not responsible for managing someone else's. That's why you stop feeling pressured to reply instantly, to justify your choices, or to keep putting up with things that drain you. You begin trusting your inner voice. You start respecting your space, your values, and your calm. Some people might challenge that calm because they haven't found theirs yet. They might label you as distant, cold, or selfish. They may say, you've changed. And maybe you have. Maybe you've grown in ways they didn't expect. You've become someone who no longer argues just to be heard. Someone who doesn't chase love, praise, or approval. You've turned into a person who understands that when your heart is settled, your thoughts are clear, and your spirit is steady, you've already overcome battles others can't even see. There's this constant pressure to explain yourself, especially when you make changes that people don't understand. You begin putting up boundaries, and others question it. You stop going to toxic gatherings, and people start talking. You choose healing over revenge, and suddenly you're called weak. But none of those opinions decide who you are. Your peace doesn't need to come with a speech or permission. It's yours. You've earned it. Maybe through pain, maybe through grief, or maybe through years of putting yourself last. But you've earned it. Like a mother who finally learns to say no to demanding family members after years of always saying yes. She no longer needs to give long reasons for not being available. Her peace is reason enough. Or think of a professional who walks away from the never-ending hustle to focus on mental well-being. They don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting their energy. Or the woman who stops chasing after one-sided friendships. She no longer sends long messages to fix something that was never whole to begin with. Her peace now speaks louder than words ever could. You don't have to explain your peace. It belongs to you. It's not about convincing others. It's about remembering what it took to get here. Every time you explain, you give away some of the peace you're working hard to protect. True peace comes when your heart, your thoughts, and your actions move together. And once you get there, you begin to carry a quiet calm that can't be faked or taken away. There's deep power in someone who no longer feels the need to explain why they're quiet, why they've changed, or why they walked away. Their presence speaks. Their energy does the talking. And that peace, it's louder than any explanation ever could be. So when someone asks why you're quieter now, why you're not as involved, or why you seem distant, just smile. You don't have to explain your peace, because your peace isn't for them to understand. It's for you to live in. There's real wisdom in knowing when to speak and when silence says more, when to stand up and when it's wiser to step away, when to clear the air and when to let people assume whatever they want. That kind of wisdom doesn't come in a moment. It comes after being drained too many times, after crying in private places, after finally realizing that peace isn't about being louder, it's about being wiser. Some people won't understand the changes in you. They might think you're distant or cold, but that's only because they still believe energy is meant to be spent proving your worth. But you've learned something better. You've learned your peace is too valuable to waste on things that break you down. You no longer get dragged into every argument. Now your energy is saved for things that build you up, not tear you apart. A woman who has grown in this way gives off a steady strength. She doesn't appear untouched by emotions. She's just learned how to guard her soul. She listens more than she speaks. She notices more than she reacts. And when she does speak, her words are thoughtful and with purpose. That's the kind of maturity that leaves a mark. Because in a world full of noise, someone who stays grounded shines like a light, and that light affects everyone nearby. So next time you're pulled into a useless argument, ask yourself, is this really worth my energy? If the answer is no, walk away. Not because you're giving up, but because you've grown enough to know that keeping your peace is the greatest strength. Your silence protects your progress. These words may sound simple, but they carry the deep lessons of transformation. Silence is often misunderstood. People think it's emptiness, avoidance, or absence. But those who have walked the path of pain, healing, and self-growth know that silence is holy. It's not a lack of connection, but a space for reflection. Not a lack of speaking, but an overflow of insight. Growth, especially the kind that happens inside, doesn't happen in noise. It needs quiet, stillness, and alone time. When you start truly growing, you'll see that not everyone is ready for the new version of you. People who are okay with who you used to be might feel uneasy with your silence. They'll ask, why are you so quiet? Or say, you're not the same? And they're right. You've changed because your silence became the soil where your soul grew strong. That silence gave you space to breathe, to pause, and to hear yourself again. Growth isn't always about books or courses. Sometimes it looks like staying quiet in the face of negativity. Sometimes it means deleting a message you were about to send. Sometimes it's biting your tongue in anger and walking away instead. These quiet choices shape you. In those moments, you're not just reacting, you're rising. Think of the caterpillar. It goes into a cocoon not to hide, but to transform. No noise, no announcements, no progress updates. Just quiet change. If you opened the cocoon too soon, you'd stop the miracle from happening. Your silence is your cocoon. It protects your growth from noise, from opinions, from outside pressures. It gives you space to heal without having to defend yourself. It gives you strength before you re-enter the world, stronger and more centered. There are times in life where you won't feel like speaking. Not because you're angry, but because you're finally hearing your inner voice. You're tuning into your soul, your wisdom, your creator. In those times, your silence becomes sacred. It's not punishment, it's a gift. You stop oversharing. You stop needing to explain. You stop chasing approval. And that's when the real transformation begins. Because when you stop performing for others, you finally start becoming yourself. In your everyday life, silence can be powerful. Maybe you choose not to join in when someone gossips. Maybe you stay calm when someone disrespects you. Maybe you sit alone with your morning tea, choosing prayer over panic, quiet over chaos. These moments aren't empty, they're sacred. They're where growth starts to blossom. The world often sees silence as weakness. But those who are silent by choice carry quiet strength. Speaking without thinking is easy. Arguing is easy. But staying calm when provoked, choosing peace over reaction, takes strength. That's how you know you're changing. Not because others cheer you on, but because you like the person you're becoming when no one's around. There was once a woman who reacted to everything. Every opinion shook her. Every disagreement felt personal. But life taught her, through pain and loss, that growth doesn't come from shouting louder. It comes from having deeper roots. One day, she started choosing silence, not because she gave up, but because she matured. In her silence, she found understanding. In her silence, she discovered who she really was. And in that quiet space, she learned that not everything deserves a reply. Some things just need to be let go. When you guard your silence, you guard your energy. And guarding your energy protects your growth. Some won't get your quiet seasons. Let them be confused. Your silence isn't for them. It's for you. It's where your strength returns, where your focus clears, where your purpose comes into view. Don't be scared of silence. Don't worry about having nothing to say. Those are the moments when your spirit speaks the loudest. Let your silence be your protection. Let it be your change. And when it's time to step out again, let your life speak for you. Let your peace, your grace, and your calm confidence be the strongest voice in the room. Because in the end, your silence won't just protect your growth. It will prove it. There's something rare and deeply powerful about a person who doesn't rush to speak, who doesn't chase attention, and who doesn't feel the need to prove their value through noise. Instead, they allow their life to speak for itself. Their discipline, their steadiness, their grace, and their decisions become the clearest voice of all. Just think about that. In your everyday life, how many people do you see always talking about what they're going to achieve, how strong they are, how no one should mess with them, how spiritual, successful, or loving they claim to be? And yet often their actions don't match their words. But then there's that quiet person, the one who works with care, respects others, shows up consistently, and undoes what needs to be done without announcing it. Those people carry an air of realness that no amount of talk can fake. There's something truly graceful about a person who doesn't need to speak to show their strength. Their actions speak loud enough. Their kindness, their calmness in the middle of stress, their presence. I'll show you they're the real deal. You know they are genuine, not because they say it, but because they live it out. And that type of energy is unforgettable. Let's bring this closer to daily life. Picture a woman working in an office where others gossip, play games, and try to get ahead through charm or manipulation. But she stays focused. She comes early, meets her deadlines, helps others sincerely, and doesn't get involved in drama. She doesn't show off or talk about how hard she works. She doesn't chase recognition. But slowly, people begin to notice, not just coworkers. Leaders see it too. She didn't need to raise her voice. She gained respect by letting her work speak for itself. That's what real influence looks like. Or consider a parent who teaches their children not just by telling them how to live, but by living it themselves. Kids might not always remember what you said, but they never forget what you did again and again. If you want your children to be kind, show them kindness. If you want them to be strong, show them how to be brave during hard times. When your words and actions match, your example becomes powerful even without saying a lot. This same truth applies to healing. Sometimes people expect you to explain your growth, to show proof that you've changed, to convince them that you're no longer who you were. But real healing is quiet. You don't need to explain it to anyone. Your peace speaks for you. Your calm response in situations that once upset you says it all. Your detachment from old habits is your proof. Let your actions tell the story of your change. Let your behavior show how far you've come. People might question your words, but they can't ignore your consistency. There's a certain power in deciding not to argue, not to explain, not to try to change someone's opinion of you, especially when you know exactly who you are. Rather than wearing yourself out defending your truth, simply live in a way that makes it clear. If someone calls you selfish, let your kindness prove them wrong. If someone thinks you're lazy, let your dedication erase that image. You don't need to convince the world that you've changed. Just live differently. Let time and consistency speak for you. And the beautiful part is, when your actions begin to speak for you, you start attracting a new kind of attention. Not the quick applause that comes from loud words or showy promises, but the deep respect that grows from living in alignment. When what you say do and believe all match, people may not always cheer you on, but they'll notice. The right people will value it greatly. You become trustworthy not because you talk about loyalty, but because you show up again and again. You become inspiring not because you tell others you're strong, but because you carry quiet strength through life's storms. You become admirable, not because you post about discipline, but because you practice it even when no one's looking. When your life becomes your message, there's no longer a need to prove anything through words. You walk with the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to offer. Your presence alone is enough. Your story speaks through your kindness, your grace under pressure, your patience, and your faithfulness. That type of message touches hearts in ways no speech ever could. So don't stress about saying the perfect thing. Focus on living with honesty, love, and strength. Let your actions be your voice. They will leave a lasting impression that words could never match. Because in the end, people may not remember exactly what you said, but they will remember how you lived, how your life made them feel. You don't have to perform to be noticed in heaven. You don't need perfect words, dramatic prayers, or raised voices. You just need honesty. And sometimes honesty is silent. It sounds like sitting quietly with a tired heart. It sounds like a long breath before facing another hard day. It sounds like one tear falling in the dark. That's when heaven leans in close. That's when divine comfort fills you. That's when strength is quietly planted in your soul. There is peace in knowing your quiet moments are never wasted. They are never ignored. They are fully known, fully seen, fully understood by the one who made you. So when your silence feels heavy, when no one seems to get you, remember, heaven does. And in that holy quiet, healing starts. In that sacred stillness, you are being restored. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to speak to be known. Your silence is heard in heaven. And that is more than enough.